gente? This is your boy Al Mugga. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders special. You know it's special. You know why? Because I'm hanging out with my big homie from the Comic Crusaders and the Cinema Crusaders. He's a creator himself, the one, the only Mr. Jeff Bracey. How you doing, bro?
Afternoon, everyone out there, and of course, you, Big Al Mega, the man who makes it all happen.
Yeah, talking about making it happen, not me, because we got two amazing guests, right? Because this is dope film that is dropping this Friday, folks. I mean, it is fire. It is a zombie film. I mean, look at this poster right here. All right, let me tease you. Right, look at that dope poster. This movie is called Herd. All right, Dark Sky Films, directed by Stephen Pierce, was an amazing cast. I mean, doesn't this poster look mad retro, Bracey? Right?
You know, we did an interview with Dark Sky Films 8 Found Dead, and Dark Sky is just knocking it out of the park. I had to comment on how good the poster for that film looked, and this film poster looks equally good. Hats off to their production staff on that.
It's two of them, because we got this one, and then we got the one that we will never look at that one. Now this one, I'm really digging right there. That's fire.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So
it makes me wish I was on their graphic design team because I like the direction they're going in.
Well, so let's do it, folks. Yo, first up, we got to introduce one of the leading actors of the film, the one, the only, the mighty. She does several things, all right, because she's not just an actor. She's a visual artist, a writer, and guess what? She's also a baseball analyst. Hey, I hope she's a Yankee fan. Don't break my heart. The one, the only, Adair. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I'm not a Yankees fan. I'm sorry. I know that.
Of course, yeah. Nobody likes the Empire. Hey,
yeah.
And let me introduce the next homie on board right here. I mean, he's done things like, worked on Saturday Night Live and stuff like that, a whole bunch of other stuff, short films, that won awards. Now he got this full-length feature that is fire, folks, that I think you guys are going to be thoroughly entertained with. Again, dropping this Friday. And guess what? If you're in New York Comic Con, there's a surprise treat going on there that we're going to talk about. You introduce the one, the only, the man behind the camera, Stephen Pierce.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you very much for having me. It's how was such an enthusiastic intro? Can we not just have a great?
I never get tired of Al's intros. Nobody pumps you up like Al.
Yeah, I feel like I'm running into like the WWE ring or something. That's very exciting.
I should be wearing a Speedo and a mask.
So you need me to get on that mic and introduce you guys with some flair and action. Let's get it done, baby. Now, welcome, and thank you for taking some time out to chat with us about, this dope film from Dark Sky Films called Her, dropping again this Friday. And if you New York Comic Con, well, there's a special treat popping there as well, which we'll talk about. But before we get into all that bochinche, all right, us at Comic Crusaders, we love a little origin story a little bit. So let me start with Ellen first. Ellen, tell us a bit about yourself, where you're originally from, and the first thing you ever fell in love with in fandom across the board.
You cut out for just 1 second there. Probably my internet connection. Can you just repeat the question? I'm sorry.
No worries.
Where I'm from and what was the next thing?
What was the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Oh, that's a great question. I am from Philadelphia. That's the easy part of the question.
God,
get on the shirt.
Yes, yeah, go Phillies. Yeah. And but I live in New York now. I've been in New York for 14 years, something like that.
I'm sorry.
And I love New York. I love it so much.
I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I live in Queens. I really love it. And that's so interesting. I grew up without a television, and so I had a sort of no TV. Yeah. So I had a sort of a different childhood. I feel like the first thing I was ever a fan of was Shakespeare, which is just the truth.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. I feel like probably Harry Potter, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Like if I think about the first thing, like right when I was a kid, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. But no TV. You're on TV now. Wow stuff. How the world works, folks. You know what I mean?
It's crazy. It's a crazy world.
Honestly, who doesn't love Harry Potter?
Right. So Stephen, tell me about you. Where you OG from, and the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm from middle of nowhere, sort of rural Missouri. It's a place called Poplar Bluff. It's actually where we made most of Herd. We shot almost all of it in that hometown. We're going back and doing a hometown screening to benefit that community in a couple of weeks that I'm very excited about. It's going to be a great time. I mean, I grew up in the middle of the woods. You know, I always used to joke that my best friend growing up was a rope swing. So I did a lot of imagining. You know, I grew up on a lot of the bargain bin Walmart 99-cent VHSs, you know, so a lot of the kind of the Disney B-sides, you know, like but you know, in the fandom world, you know, honestly, I remember my mom, I think, is terrified of horror movies, so we had like none. The most horror, you know, genre film we had was like the Keaton Batman. Like that's probably as close as it got. But I remember watching The Silence of the Lambs when I was young, and that one blew my mind, because it was, and I think it still is one of the best. It's one of my favorite films. Like it's so rewatchable, because it's not all about the scare, the gore. The thing that's terrifying about it is the kind of culmination of the world, you know, and the characters in it, and how unique and crazy they are. It's like The Shining, you know?
Yeah.
Great. All right, so I'll continue with you, Stephen, in this moment. Talk about your creative path. You know, when did it happen? What sparked that?
Yeah, well, so I mean, I was playing all sports and doing everything, you know, a Missouri boy does. Lots of lighting of things on fire, and then they opened a theater in my hometown when I started high school, my freshman year. So this woman was in Cape Porter. She donated a couple of $1 million and built this state-of-the-art theater for a high school. And so it was kind of the talk of the town. I was in the first play, and I kind of just liked doing it. Ended up going to college for, you know, conservatory for acting. And I got about halfway through that when I realized, it's like, oh, acting isn't really what appeals to me. Like, I like the making of the thing, because when I was in high school, I was, you know, coaching all the speech and debate team. I was like pulling pieces, editing pieces together, making my own, because we didn't have an arts really. They don't have an arts program, so I'd find an English teacher to sponsor a bus, and then we'd go and do like speech and debate and other things, and I just run it. So anyway, that was kind of my path, and I ended up in New York and ended up editing for a long time, and kind of finally got to the place where directing can be sort of my focus and my career focus, which it suits me really well, I think.
The way when this movie came out, yes, I think Bracey and I both agree. So about you, what was the path? What was the spark? When of them stones start striking, I said, let's go.
Yeah. So I think both of my parents are college professors. They both study art, visual art. My mom's an art historian, and my dad is a folklorist, which is essentially like the study of folk art, typically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I grew up in a house that very much valued the opinion of artists, and perhaps I grew up therefore with an outsized opinion of how much like society values artists as a whole. I remember very clearly being, I mean, like not yet in kindergarten, not yet in grade school, and seeing a family friend in a sort of, I mean, I think might have even been like a community production of The Mikado. And I was like, that's so cool. Like this gets to pretend like he's another person, which that's my favorite thing to do, is pretend that I'm another person. But like he gets to do it with other people. And like,
that power.
yeah. So I mean, in some ways I think that was sort of the spark, and just from a very early age I was like, I want to be an actor. I think that storytelling is really the thing that appeals to me the most, as I also consider myself a writer. And so I think that my engine for both of those things, though, is like enjoying to get to be another person, whether I am writing that other person or whether I'm getting to embody that other person.
Ooh, there we go. And folks, we're about to get into it so we can find out how the bromance began here. The promance, actually, the promance. That's how I'm going to have to level them up every time. So the promance and how you guys met to work together and become the lead of this dope film. Folks, I want to show you guys the trailer of Herd, all right? The official one. Again, this movie's dropping this Friday, and again, we're gonna talk about it. New York Comic Con. There's a treat. Let's check out the trailer.
Lex, I need you to stay awake, okay?
Where you all been?
We've been out camping.
What happened to her?
We need to get to the hospital.
Hospital's no good. It's been overrun. You can trust me.
But we've seen how quickly it can turn to an overwhelming outbreak.
Y'all roomies?
Yeah.
You okay, son? It's okay to be scared.
Roommates? Alex, listen to me. You don't understand these people.
Sometimes we have to do things we don't want. Things we never dream to keep people safe.
It's like you've been saying, room for doubt equals room for death.
I don't have anything left to take. God, I'm so sick and tired of you guys just doing whatever you want as if there's no consequences. What's the road?
Hey, please!
Get that on the ground! I'm in command!
It's unbearable!
I wouldn't dream of jerking you around, John.
I love you.
I think we're gonna be thick as thieves.
Please just let us go home!
Why do you assume that people won't do the right thing? Experience.
That part right there, when you said experience, I actually expected you to say because I'm a New Yorker.
Well, Jamie's not a New Yorker, yeah.
Yeah, man, I wish he was, man, because that would have been the perfect line right there. All right, so Bracey, before you get started, this is my last question before Bracey takes the floor. Talk about that bromance and the leading up to how you guys met and to work together on this film.
Well, I mean, we worked with Eisenberg and Beans as the casting director for the film, and Ellen and Mitzi came through a large audition process. Many people read for Jamie and Alex, and ultimately, I mean, it was alpha. I will say a funny story is this alphabetized sent to me. I ultimately looked at like just a few people for each one, and Ellen was first because of her last name Adair, and so it was a hell of a bar to be set for everybody else that had to read for it because Ellen was just incredible right away, and then everybody else was very good, but just nothing could ever come close to how she was good she was.
Wonderful. And what made you want to read for the role, Ellen?
I mean, this role is incredible. The film is obviously incredible. I responded so strongly to it when I first read it. And I've said this a million times, but I feel like it always bears repeating. Like my thought when I read it was I would die to do this movie as long as I get to die first, or as long as I get to do the movie first and then die afterwards. And yeah, obviously not die first. I didn't want to do that. Fortunately, it seems like things are on track for that to happen. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of really incredible things about what the film is saying generally, but also the role of Jamie is, I just think, exactly the kind of role that every actor dreams of, because there's so much going on in terms of, her relationship with her wife and her relationship with her father and her relationship with her own experience of whether or not she wants to become a parent, and sort of like the ways that she has figured out how to survive so far and how she's going to have to figure out how to survive through the course of the movie. No spoilers. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's an incredibly written script and an incredibly written character. So I mean, it was in the like 100th percentile of things when I read it, where I was like, oh my God, I just want to do this. I want to be this person so badly.
And it shows wonderfully performed, in my opinion. Now, Bracey, go ahead, my brother.
All right. Since you took up about half my questions, he's asking all the questions I want to ask. But fortunately, I write a lot of questions. So we've already established how you two came together. So you already said that Jamie set the bar really high when she came into audition. But I was really impressed with the chemistry that you and Mitzi had together. Was that part of what got Mitzi cast? Did you guys actually get to read together, or did you get put together after the fact?
I think we did this casting initially. It was in fall 2021, wasn't it? I think something like that sounds about right, or maybe 2020. I can't remember. It was during COVID times. It was still during the general when you couldn't do auditions, in person at all, and so it was all remote. And I remember Ellen and Mitzi reading together, and they just had amazing chemistry. One of the awesome things about Mitzi Akaha, who plays Alex, and one of the audition was sort of centered around that. It can be extremely hard to watch people go through big life, like huge, crazy events as a performer, as an audience. So like, for instance, like, without giving too much away, she breaks her leg early on. Alex goes through a lot of trauma throughout the film, and has a lot of action where she's reacting to things, big major things like that, like an injury. And that is very, very hard to perform well and make it comfortable for an audience to watch. And Mitzi from the get-go was just so comfortable to watch, and she's so athletic in and of her own right. She's a gymnast, and she's very good at moving around and doing all those things, selling the effect. So then it was just about them working together, and I'll let Ellen talk about the audition.
Yeah, it was actually, I remember it was the summer of 2021 because I was at my in-laws' house at the time. And so the callbacks and the chemistry reads that we did were all in my in-laws' basement in Iowa. And I remember like doing the scenes like with a pillow because of course, it was just the strangeness of that particular situation. Yeah, it was. I mean, I loved all of the actors that I read with, but I definitely left that chemistry read session being like, oh gosh, I mean, obviously I really hope that I get this, but if I do, I really hope that it's Mitzi because yeah, even through the computer, I felt like we had a lot of chemistry, and I just felt like I was really impressed with her ability as an actor and her vulnerability. And as Steve was saying, she's just incredibly talented at like not only responding, which is of course so much of an actor's job, but also responding to things that aren't really happening, which is, I guess, is also part of an actor's job. But there's so much that she has to do in the film that is not like responding to another actor, but that is responding to some internal cue of a thing that's not actually happening to her, i.e. like her leg is not actually broken for the film, thank God. So yeah, it was, I think from day one, a sort of a funny fact about the film is that the very last scene in the film we shot on the first day, and
okay, so not chronologically this time.
yeah,
very much not.
But like instantly I was just even more in love with her. I just was so excited about the prospect of being able to work with her for the rest of the filming of the movie, just because of how incredible she is to like watch as a scene partner, and everything that she gives and that she does. She's just so real and so nuanced, and an incredible scene partner.
I'll tell you, as someone who's shot and directed and written some short films of my own, I'm always fascinated by the process. Like, I like to do things chronologically. It's a short film, so you kind of have that freedom to do that. But for those of you who don't know, a lot of things in Hollywood are not shot chronologically. It's all determined by location, budget, just what you have available at the time. And for actors, that process I find incredibly intriguing because you have to go backwards and forwards in your character and figure out where you are from moment to moment. You don't get to like kind of grow into your, start at one arc and grow into another arc. So how do you handle something like that?
Yeah, I guess it's a situation where, I mean, I think number one, it's very important to know the script backwards and forwards, and to really have spent a lot of time thinking about exactly where you are. So, I mean, just to get sort of like slightly nitty gritty about my process, I spend a lot of time once I come home from whatever we're shooting, looking at the scenes for the next day and making sure that I know exactly what are the questions that I have in this scene, what just happened, where exactly am I in my journey for this scene, so that I'm really ready for like, okay, this is what we're focusing on tomorrow. This is where I'm going to be. So I think that's one thing. But I also think that I simply embrace the positive no matter what the shooting order ends up being. So while I'm always very grateful if we are shooting something after, for example, the thing that came before, or if I'm talking about a scene and we've already shot that scene, I'm very grateful that then I have the memory in my body of what that was and what that meant, and just the way that we would in life, remember exactly how the conversation actually went. But I think that there's an advantage to also not shooting the very beginning of the movie first, because that means that then the first thing that the audience sees isn't also the first time that I am interacting with the world, right?
Mhm.
Because then when I am shooting that scene, I do have the lived experience of having been that character that the character would obviously have. So
Mhm.
I think honestly, if I have a preference as an actor, it is actually not to shoot the first thing that the audience is going to see first.
Interesting. Now, especially since you said that, because your very first scene in the film, and this is sort of the nature of film. The first person you see that you understand is going to be a protagonist. A skillful director will want you to start identifying, empathizing with this character, and so I'm already invested in you right away. And so when we meet Alex, we see Alex and Jamie together. I immediately had this kind of flinching reaction to her screaming at her when she suggested, like, well, something sounds weird, maybe we shouldn't go. And so initially I didn't like Alex and I was on Jamie's side. And then as we get deeper into the story, my paradigm shifts as I learn more and more about what Jamie's going through versus what Alex is going through. And I was like, well done,
Great.
to get you to to really get those gears turning. And that's one of the hallmarks of this film.
Steven's happy, boy. He's like, yeah.
Awesome. You got it, man.
Man, it was so good. And I love this because you deal with so many interesting things in this film. You subvert expectation in the most skillful ways, not in this kind of trash way that happens a lot in cinema today, where like it's just like, oh, you thought it was this thing, but no, it's not. It's very clever, and I don't want to spoil it, but like I'll just say, like, pay attention to what's going on in the TVs. There are TVs in the film that give you little tidbits, and I was so impressed with how you handled that and the handling of Jamie's point of view. She's the main focus, but she's not the only player. But a lot of this is from her point of view. And we see all the trauma, all the history, all the experience through how she's seeing the world. But then it's offset by Alex. And you two as characters are wonderfully the sort of opposites attract, because Jamie is carrying all this trauma and Alex is carrying all this hope and positivity, even in the most dire circumstance. And that was a wonderful relationship to see play out, especially in the context of two people who've just lost a child and how it's breaking apart the relationship.
But I also was getting mad at Alex at some points in the film because I thought she was ignorant to what, you know what I mean?
There's a point where like you're a little too naive. And so, and again, that's such a tribute to this film. Like you don't have this delineation of like pure black and white or even these shades of gray. You're constantly bouncing around. And one of the most refreshing things about this film is you take a lot of things that wouldn't normally gel, that could easily get very tropey. You've got the kind of redneck centered Christian people. You've got the lesbian couple. You've got like, people are into guns, and people are into like, city folk versus country folk. All this stuff is going on, and everybody gets a fair shake in this film. I didn't feel like I was getting preached at. I was getting beat over the head with any sort of agenda. I felt like I was really just watching real people throughout the film, because real people are very complex, and kudos to the lot of you for doing that.
Dude, well, thank you so much. That's an enormous compliment. That is exactly what we were hoping to do. And I think that is is extremely gratifying to hear. Funny thing is, you say the first scene with Ellen and as Jamie, the first time you meet Jamie, that scene actually didn't exist when the first cut of the film. Isn't it? It's very funny. The first time you met them, she had a phone call, and there's like a scene later where you meet Alex. Like you met Jamie just putting stuff in the truck and closing the door and the calls coming out. That's where it cut to initially. That was the first draft, or that was what we shot. We did tests in New York, and we did a lot of work on the first few cuts. We did, several tests with some audiences, and what we were finding was there wasn't enough information for the audience to cotton on to what Jamie's going through, that we didn't give them enough time to teach them why she is upset with Alex. So a lot of what they are taking away is just Jamie being upset and being mad and not understanding why. And so we were having a problem with that. So we went in and added that scene in, and that really just immediately shifted the whole thing. So that was a very small reshoot. That's the only scene, actually, that, and there's a scene with a rabbit. Those two are shot in New York, but those are the only scenes actually shot in New York. The rest of it's all shot in Missouri.
I'll tell you. So somebody's birthday, all these balloons popped up.
I was wondering if it was a gesture or something I did. Like,
I really liked it.
Get it to go again.
Celebration. I'll compare it to another favorite horror thriller of mine, and that's Hard Candy with Elliot Page back when she was still Ellen, because there's a film where, like, once you understand the crime this other fellow's committed, how heinous it is, and yet when she does her little torture scene, I actually felt myself like going like, okay, that's enough. Just call the cops. Like it's the mark of like, well, I'll just say it, just an auteur to be able to shift, my emotional point of view around like that. Somebody who, like, you should feel like is an ultimate scumbag, and like, oh God, I actually feel some sympathy for this guy who's done all these horrible things. Like, just kill him, just arrest him, just do something. Like, but this is the most awful thing. And here you've got, like I said, all these different characters from these different walks of life and expressing different things, and they're all valid and it all works. And you just handle it so beautifully, both in terms of direction and performance, and of course writing. This is extraordinarily well written, because I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time.
I mean, all right, I gotta ask in here too. Let me check in. I want to know, what was the inspiration behind her, Steven? Because I mean, your background, Saturday Night Live, right? Top photographer, late night cap, and then you did a short film, won a couple awards. You know what I mean? Like, how did that lead into this, and then landing legends? I mean, Corbin Burnson, Timothy Murphy,
and which sadly, I'll say, like, I looked all over the internet. I could not find any place to watch Bang Bang. I really wanted to check that out before the interview.
Oh yeah, I'll send it over. Bang Bang is a fun short. I stand by that one. It's, I've made many things that you're kind of like, as growing up, you know what I mean, as far as a content creator. Like, if you ever make stuff, there's always stuff that you're like, you put everything you got into, and you're like, wow, that really sucks. Like, and then you come back to it a little bit later. And I've made, I think, James, my partner in crime, we've learned our, lessons of, for every success we've had, we've done everything about wrong. We've done it just so wrong so many times that I think we've learned some ways that we know what works for us and how we can do it. And yeah, Herd was sort of inspired by, we wanted to do a genre film and something that we could produce as an indie production company, this being like my first feature narrative film, and something that we wanted to get into. We wrote specifically for locations and areas we knew that we could have, extra resources and extra access and make them really high production value. So we knew this area well. The story is based on sort of, I grew up in the country, in the middle of nowhere. I've now lived in the city my entire adult life. I'm basically right at the age now where I've lived exactly half my life as a country kid and exactly half my life as a city person. It's like, so, and I sort of feel often caught in between the worlds. You know what I mean? Like, when I go home now, I don't really fit in there, but here I'm still feel like I'm not totally accepted for being here. So that kind of was the general, like, background idea for Jamie, is being somebody that is caught between worlds, and that turned into this character that runs away from her trauma, and she's running away, and the film is physically dragging her back into her past to face her traumas. So that's kind of that was sort of the basis of it. And then there's a lot of other little tiny elements and colors of just the way that James and I view the world and our experiences with people in life. And like you said, our real mission was to make them real people, not stereotypes or caricatures, to really give a fair shake to everybody.
But
Yeah,
bro,
some good
talk
makeup
about
effects
the
in the
look.
film.
Yeah, talk about the look
Seriously.
of your sick zombies here. Because let me tell you, when I saw it, it's like, man, what a case of acne these guys got.
I was like in my head watching the film, I was calling them the pustule zombies.
Yep, exactly. We call them heps in our world.
Yeah.
This is one of the main sequences of one of the big hep sequences in the second act of the film.
So that was like for hepatitis, I was taking it.
You know, I think that's part of the film.
Because
So
of
you know,
bloodborne disease, I was thinking.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's something, you know, there's some levels to that. I know there's a lot of levels to everything we put in here. Like, so, but that is one of the aspects that I think, you know, I hope people enjoy about the film, because it's again, an assumption. We tried to play with a lot of assumptions. Like, even when you meet Jeremy Holm, he plays Big John Gruber. He's kind of an aggressive looking guy. He plays a lot of police officers, tough guys. And if you know Jeremy in real life, that's, you know, he is a former MMA fighter. He is a very tough dude, but he's also extremely compassionate. Like, he's like a super, super loving, giving, caring person.
Well, that comes across in this role really well.
Yeah. So we wrote that specifically for him, and that no one is black and white. We all contain good. We all contain bad. We all contain arrogance. We all contain judgment. And, you know,
right there, Big John.
Yeah, there he is. And yeah, I mean, I think he does an incredible job in this film. And, you know, I've known him for a million years, and I was very lucky to have him. The cast is incredible.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Ellen was about to say, go ahead, Ellen, because you want to say it.
There's so many things I want to say. Yeah, Jeremy Holm is just astonishing. He is, I mean, I think perhaps the nicest person that I have ever met in my entire life. And I've met like a lot of really nice people. He's just, yeah. And I feel like I want to say that because he's always playing bad guys. And so I want to proselytize Jeremy Holm, not just as the phenomenal actor that everybody knows him to be, but also as just like a radiant ball of light of a human being. Yeah, I was very excited to get to work with so many of these wonderful actors that I had seen in so many things before. I had seen Jeremy not just in some of his very high profile television roles that I can't talk about right now because there's a strike, but I had also seen him on stage, and, you know, also Corbin Burnson and Amanda Fuller and Dana Snyder, really like the just absolutely all-star cast.
That's Master Shake for those of you who don't know.
Yeah.
Dana Snyder, Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah, and I also wanted to shout out the Caitlins. It was Caitlin Wallace and Caitlin Young who did the makeup that we are looking at right now. And
thank you. I was gonna ask, like, yo, I love my old school looking effects, you know, the CG, you know, bring it back to the basic. It's beautiful and wow.
Yeah, Caitlin Young is the effects designer. I mean, it's an independent film, so we had, you know, Caitlin, and she brought on Caitlin Wallace to assist her. They're both named the Cats, you know, and they were Caitlin designed all these wonderful boils, because our sort of idea was that these, you know, these zombies, our heps, have sort of bad migraines behind their eyes. That's sort of the motivation for their movement. There's some motivation for the pain they're going through. So they're in a constant like agony. And everywhere they have, you know, so they'll like scratch themselves trying to relieve this pain. And then from that joins this like infection of boils and pus, and they're very wet and kind of gross. And Kat did a great job designing all those boils herself. Like, she made all of them. There are some larger effects like leg breaks and some scratches and things that we initially had built by another house, like a very big reputable effects house. And on set, they just didn't communicate very well. They didn't look real enough. So Kat ended up rebuilding everything in a hotel room in Missouri, and she just did it on her own. She just completely so talented.
Movie magic at its best.
Yeah,
we were just looking at a picture of Matt Mundy, who you know, plays one of the Heps and is also one of the producers of the film, and he had sort of like a Hep school. There he is. Where he taught all of the other Heps like how to be a Hep, really like what's the motivation for a Hep, like what's specifically going on with my body the whole time. So I think that's one fun thing for people who are horror movie fans and people who are zombie movie fans specifically, that like there's really a new lore to this particular kind of zombie,
Yes.
kind of like, check it, new zombie just dropped. So
Yes, for real, yo. Salute for bringing that up on surreal, because you did do something new. And when I noticed it, I said, "Oh, wait a minute, interesting. All right."
No, 100%. I like.
I would have thought how really they would react. Because honestly, has there ever been an origin to the violence? There really hasn't. When they wake up, why would they be instantly violent?
Oh, sure. We get a few origins here and there. I mean, like, you go to your general sort of zombie film and talk about like they've lost the higher functions. They go to the lizard brain, the primitive brain, the fight or flight brain, or something like the rage virus in 28 Days Later. They were specifically experimenting with things like that. But as a gigantic, fiction horror movie nerd, I love getting that perspective that you guys gave us something new in terms of zombies. Because let's face it, zombies are so played out. You've got to come up with a new idea. And you guys, once again, I'm going to say subvert expectations, but in the best way. And I can't say more than that, because it would spoil some of the things that go on with the zombies. You've got to watch this film to see it. And it's not just the makeup effects. You said something very important there, Stephen, about production value. And I'm curious, what was your budget for this film? Because you clearly, you're just shooting in a couple locations. You got a few things going on. But this looks like a big film in terms of production value. And so hats off again to that, because it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't sound cheap. The cinematography, the lighting is equal to the task of the writing and the actors that you have involved. If you could talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. One of the things that James and I knew whenever we were going to make it is we didn't want to do a chamber piece. A lot of times I think films, especially independent films, can feel very small because you don't have a visual journey that matches the story. You know what I mean? Like the story, it's sort of like a play that you filmed, and we did not want to do that. This film, in fact, travels quite a bit, so it makes it very hard on travel and schedule and all that. You got to just give it up to our cinematographer, was Brennan Full, and she is incredible. She's very, very good. She had extremely limited resources, and she just made it look fantastic. And that is just really strong taste and experience. And she just is very, very skilled at it. And we had a great team. We brought in a second camera. We filmed with two Alexas. We had a second camera came in, was Ryan Doris, and I've worked with him. You mentioned the show Top Photographer. He was the director of photography on that series I did back in 2016. He's done, so many series and stuff we've done for kind of lifestyle, more stuff. And I've known him for a million years, and he's a director as well. And he came in to do second camera for this, and he sort of operated as a second unit. So when we would shoot a scene, I'd have my boards and he'd get my shot, but then we'd do another take and he'd try and find something new or interesting based on what was happening in the room. And there's so many times that was just extremely valuable. So, yes, I think the film does look, a lot higher. It punches above its weight for sure, as far as production value and scope and scale and move. And that really is just due to, this was a group of very good artists. There was only a few first timers. Most of us have been kind of career television people. And we just kind of got to circle back around and join our forces and pointed at something we all believed in. And that's just the result of experience meeting passion,
Well, like Voltron, baby. Wepa.
Well, movie making is one of the most collaborative endeavors you can participate in. And I think you guys just put together an outstanding team, because this looks like a studio picture. That's how good it is.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, this question's for both of y'all. One of the most interesting and difficult places to shoot is when water's involved, and you had to do several scenes in a canoe. And canoes, I love canoes, but they're notoriously easy to tip over. And every time Mitzi jumped up, I was like, "They're going over! Here they go!" Tell us a bit about that experience from both your points of view.
I mean, that's quite hilarious, because I think both Mitzi and I were very nervous about actually making the canoe tip over, which now I feel like perhaps I've betrayed something, but sort of telegraphed in the trailer. Yeah, we were very nervous about would we actually make it flip all the way over, and we didn't. We managed to dunk ourselves in the river, but we didn't manage to do that.
I mean, that shooting that stuff was so. I mean, it was it was pretty rough. It was not a pleasant experience. And that's yeah. We ended up we started on a river. There's this beautiful river in Missouri where I wanted to shoot it, and I kind of insisted we do it. It's called Current River. It's usually crystal clear, beautiful, but this is in April, I think. Whenever we shot these scenes was in April 2022, and the water, it'd been raining, so the water's really high and it's a little bit murky. And God, it was so cold. Like, it is very, very cold, and the wind was blowing so hard. And somewhere we've got pictures of it, and it's really fun because the way we're going to shoot the dialogue is we found a flatbed pontoon that's like got a boat basically with a pontoon built on top of it. So it's very, very heavy and so we rigged, wood, like these big posts through it.
But I imagine it was very stable to shoot from.
Exactly. So we could put the camera anywhere we wanted on the bed, but then we rigged posts through it so we could rig the canoe, physically strap it to the side of it, and it looks like it's on the water.
Nice.
And so we had this kind of big elaborate thing, and then we had a bunch of safety boats and support boats and all these things. So we were shooting on an actual river, but then the day we went to shoot it, we had one day to shoot all those dialogue scenes, and my God, it was so windy. It was 40-mile-an-hour winds upstream. So like it was, the current was like capping upstream and spinning the boats, and it was just just hell. And it was an awful day, and it's such an intense scene, and working on water is already impossible. And you end up, he's got some beautiful wide shots, and then we've got a couple of sections of dialogue, but the big dialogue scene, we ended up going to a lake, which was our backup plan for the location that's in a completely different county somewhere else, but it's got rivers running through this lake. And it sort of looks similar, and it doesn't have a current. So we went back a couple of days later and shot those whole scenes again, because that was its own fun things. We had to like rig a boat and rig a trolling motor to it to then get a boat to move in one direction, but it can't make any noise. So you don't want the sound of the paddling. So you can't paddle. You can't run the big motor because it's too loud. So you got to end up with these little electric things. And it was sort of a nightmare.
I mean, I would imagine a scene with that many complicated sound issues that you'd just end up doing a whole bunch of Foley and a whole bunch of ADR, because wow, that does sound like a nightmare.
I think there's only one ADR line in that entire sequence, maybe two. We ended up getting actual a good sound from it, but it was, a miracle.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing that we shot. And I remember on the original day that we were shooting on the river, it was so windy. And so I thought, I'm just going to sacrifice this pair of red sunglasses that I personally own to try to make a headband for myself to hold knowing that then we were going to shoot the scene where it tipped into the river and that the sunglasses would be gone. They weren't expensive sunglasses, but I was just like, I paid these sunglasses as tribute to this film. And then hilariously, when we then went to shoot again, the sunglasses were gone. The sunglasses had been swept down the river. And so the head of wardrobe, Lauren Lau, had to find comparable sunglasses and
continuity.
paint them red, right? And the only reason that the sunglasses were in the shot to begin with was because of how windy it was. They were not part of her original costume design at all. So yeah, just a sort of a comical sidebar part of the weather on that particular day.
Well, I love hearing these stories and hearing, especially, I'm very fond of talking to people who do smaller productions and seeing how they overcome all the travails that come with that endeavor. Especially a number of people I've talked to recently, they've all shot films during the period of COVID. And you've already discussed a little bit of that. Were there any other key changes that forced you to practice in order to get the film done?
We had just a really strict COVID protocol, and we were pretty lucky. Whenever we went to film it, just got lucky. We hit a dip in Missouri. It was right when COVID was at one of its lowest periods. And as soon as we left, it spiked again. So we were very worried about it the whole time, because Corbin was only there for a certain amount of days, and he had another project he had to get to. Timothy V. Murphy ended up having to leave a day early because he was in another film that was shooting, and they needed him, and it was a bigger film, so we were able to accommodate them. And you try and do that when you can. Because filmmakers want to be good to each other. We don't want to be like, oh, have him sit around for an evening here. So anyway, we were trying to do that. And so rain was an issue. Some of the scenes got there's a scene in the end. It's one of my favorite scenes of the film now, where there's like a standoff between Jeremy Holm's character, Big John Gruber, and Timothy Murphy's character, Sterling. And it ends up being inside the warehouse because it was raining. And it was set. We had a big set. We'd been working on it for probably a couple of weeks to get all the pieces together from the community, because outside you get to see parts of it. We had this awesome, I think it was like 100 feet long by 60 feet wide exterior barricade that was built out of like farm trucks and school buses and things that they'd found and kind of cobbled together, and it looked fantastic. And they'd spent all this time, the art department, Michael David, our production designer, like running just string lights from Home Depot and like distressing them and making them look and putting it around so we had things. And then it rained the night that we were going to shoot the big scene there. So we had to rewrite the scene to make it make sense and find a way that they would be inside to a degree we could use it. And ultimately, it made the film so much better. That scene is stronger and tighter because we got a rewrite in why we've been shooting. So there were a couple of things we could, tweak. I mean, it's just little tweaks. Like we ended up getting to just punch this up, add a little bit more for the character Bernie in there, because that wasn't in the original script, and it really sells that scene.
Okay, so, I had wondered about that because I'm ex-military, and I was thinking from a military standpoint. And Big John, he's wearing like a military coat, and Sterling's obviously got some paramilitary things going on. I kept thinking, why aren't they posted up on top of the RVs and things, talking to him from there, from the high ground? Why let them inside? Like, now we get the reason for.
Yeah, well, there you have weather. That's why. And it's a bummer of a reason from a creative sense, because I mean, honestly, you touched on. I love that you've caught on to the different. There is a generational and sort of a parallel thing of the military elements of these and the different factions of what they are, who they are, and how they interact with each other. Like, for instance, Bernie's the only one in the whole damn movie that wears a flak jacket. And I think that is just absolutely hilarious. Like, and, nobody's ever really caught it. But then every time he pulls it out and puts it on, I'm like, of course, this is the guy.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that. So it shows, like, these little details, if you're paying attention, they add to the history of the character without needing exposition. And when I look at Sterling, I'm thinking he's got to be somewhat inspired by some of the heavier guys from The Walking Dead. It seems like there's always some guy who's got like some paramilitary training. He quickly organizes people, whereas Big John, he's more of like the guy who's been there, done that, and he's come back home, and he's able to transition into being back home. You don't know so much about Sterling, but you get an idea that things are much more different than Sterling, and he convinces a lot of people to join his organization. But then we still get the humanizing effect that when Jamie is pleading for the life of the lady in the film, and that guy takes off his mask and he starts going, "Oh God, I'm sorry." He starts to have that epiphany. What is he doing? And there's so many great moments like that in this film. We find out how awful Jamie's dad is to her, and yet he's the hero for this community because of whatever's going on in his life. They said, thank God he's prepping like this. So again, information without extensive exposition, which I appreciate so greatly. So, he had things in place, and it allowed these people to survive. And so again, you guys this is so damn skillfully done. I can't get over how good this film is for a smaller film.
Thank you so much. I mean, it all is. I mean, good and bad is just through the perspective of the beholder, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's all about is. And I think oftentimes we want to condemn people that are pro-gun and pro-military, at least I'm in New York. Like, that's very much like, oh my God, who would possibly do this? I was like, well, I know these people. I love these people. These aren't bad people. You know what I mean? They just, this is the way you can see how a sequence of events have led them to this moment. You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of Hurt is about, is showing how, if you really dig down on a person's story and their point of view and who they are, it's a culmination of like a series of events and choices they've made. Very rarely is it a oh, that's just a shitty human. That's just very rare. You know what I mean? That's
there's the lovely double entendre of the name itself. You know, first you're thinking of the herd is like this collection of wandering zombies walking around, but then you realize, you know, humanity can very much act like a herd animal under duress.
All right, so here's what I want to talk about, guys, before we wrap the show, because New York Comic Con is this weekend, right? And let me bring up this list real quick, because you know you have a theatrical and special screening at midnight in New York, and also at New York Comic Con. So talk about it. Who's going to be at New York Comic Con? Are you, Steve? Are you, Ellen? What up? Will I be able to see you guys? Because I'm going to be over there as press. Will you want to hear me say, we're fine in person? Let's go.
Yeah, man, come on over. Ellen and I will be there. Jeremy Holm will be there, and our cinematographer, Brendan Full, will all be at Comic-Con. We're all going to be there to meet people, do a little panel after the screening of the film.
Fantastic.
Yep, and then we have, I mean, we've got, as you put it up on the screen here, we've got a lot of theatrical runs, you know, kind of throughout the country that are happening across the next little bit. Midnight Theater, we also have a later screening that evening at 9:30. I think tickets are still available for that.
Have you guys been to New York Comic Con before?
We did our teaser trailer premiere at LA Comic Con. So we're just, you know, we're kind of moving east. And I think next year we're going to try and do, you know, French Comic Con and eventually make it all the way out to China, Hong Kong Comic Con. I don't know.
Oh,
Bad joke. Good. No, nobody come with me on that one?
Look, I'm for it. Like, do we get to go to France and China? Yeah. I'm there.
Okay, great. I should have stopped earlier.
So, do you know, like where your booth is or the panel room and day and time, so we can roll out people so they're aware?
We're Thursday night the 12th at Comic-Con room 408, and that's going to be at 7:30 p.m. So we're one of the evening screenings. We'll have a panel to follow. But yeah, come check us out, room 408, Comic-Con.
Well, I'll put the notes below, folks. That is coming this weekend. So, Bracey, last question before we all let them go.
Last question, it has to be, what is next for each of you? Is there going to be more collaboration, or do you have individual projects that you guys are doing?
Ellen first.
Sure. Well, I guess I cannot talk about anything else that I might have coming out later because of the strike.
All right, then let me ask you this then. You consider yourself a writer. Are you putting out any prose? Are you writing scripts? What are you writing?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Yes, I am working on like a third draft of a novel that I have been working on for the last about a year, and that is tentatively titled "The Miraculous Journey of Con Mulcahy's Glasses," and I also have a couple of other novels that I have momentarily shelved, but I'm working on. I also have a horror comedy script that is also in sort of like revisions on a full draft, and a TV pilot that I am working on.
All sounds very exciting. Glad to hear it.
Thanks.
Yeah. This is a good time also to just drop in that one of the reasons Ellen and all of our performers can speak about Herd is we have an interim agreement with SAG-AFTRA.
Sure.
So we obviously we stand very firmly with everybody throughout the labor struggles.
Perfectly understood. Perfectly understood.
I just want to make sure no listeners don't get the wrong idea at all. But so next up, we've got a lot of screenings coming up for Herd. I'm eager to get back to work now. Some of these strikes are over and ending, and we can get back and do more stuff. James and I have been working on a slasher comedy script, so like kind of a slasher romantic comedy that's going to go hopefully into production next year. That's already moving down the road, and it's sort of a.
I'm already intrigued by that idea.
It's the same kind of thing as Herd. It's a little bit of a genre bender, but I think there's got some really fun, strong characters. And anything Ellen, she brings up anything, I have to be involved. They're just the best performer, in the world. So
you guys are a dynamic duo. Steven, I can't just get over enough like the writing and the directing of this film. So darn good, so unexpectedly good. Again, and not to be a slight or a backhanded compliment, but low budget is lower budget, and sometimes you get some real gems, sometimes you get like it's all right. And Ellen, beautifully, wonderfully nuanced performance. Really enjoyed it to pieces.
Thank you so much. Like my main aim is just to do what I think is this beautiful script, the service that it deserves. And so if I have done that, I have done enough.
No, I definitely felt your energy and your character, the way you emoted. I understood you, homie. I understood you. You definitely, put that through the screen very well.
I hope we get to see you and Missy working again, just because of the chemistry you two had, and of course Jeremy as well. Jeremy Holm was absolutely fantastic, and all the other people who we didn't get a chance to really focus on because short form interview and all that. But guys, go see Herd. You will not be disappointed.
Yes. And right there, if you happen to be in New York, they're going to have a special screening, Midnight Theater, all right, at New York Comic Con, baby, this week. Go check them out. You can talk to them, see them, give them a holler. Let them know how you feel about this dope film. Trust me, it's different. It's in a very good way. I'm a horror fan. Let me tell you, I was enjoying the story, the narrative. It's different. I like these, thought-provoking type movies, and this is definitely one of those. So a big shout out to Steven, to Ellen, and to the whole cast, and a big shout out to Stacy too for putting this together. Thank you, homie. All right,
Stacy's our gal for making all this happen.
Absolutely, and Bracey, thank you for hanging out with me. Mi gente, you know what it is. Stay tuned for everything Comic Crusaders. All right, comiccrusaders.com, over at our YouTube at Comic Crusaders World. Look out for me. The loud Puerto Rican screaming web all over the place at New York Comic Con this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's make it happen, folks. Hasta la próxima. Much love. Wepa!